School safety recommendations released, local legislators pushing for funding for 4Cs, and town manager Tom Lynch taking the show on the road. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Monday, July 21st, 2014. I'm Sarah Colvin. 29 recommendations are listed on the Massachusetts Task Force on School Safety and Security's recommendation list released last week. Barnstable Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Mary Chakowski, heard from the governor while he was on Cape last week.
Every school system in the Commonwealth is at varying degrees of preparedness with respect to any incident around school safety. And we have taken some of those recommendations, already began to implement them in Barnstable. But I think the most critical one, we had someone, Jack McCarthy, who is the executive director for the Mass School Building Authority, and he was on the School Safety Task Force. And I think, our schools were built in the 50s. They don't have the locking mechanisms, the technologies that schools have nowadays with cameras, with locking doors, as far as classroom doors. There's certain mechanisms that easily can be locked and still be able to get out in case of an emergency. So, we're looking closely at those recommendations, but as I said, many of them we have begun to implement, and it really is a guide for us to use, and we hope that the report will be useful to many superintendents across the
Dr.
state.
Chakowski served on the 22-member task force that crafted those regulations. The owners of a planned brewery on West Main Street will be in front of the Barnstable School Committee tonight to answer concerns from parents.
I know there will be the proponents for the brewery, and we also have some parents as well as staff members who are opposing the location of the brewery over at West Main. So they're going to be there this evening to sort of share their views. I think it's a controversial issue. It's been on our agenda for the last couple of meetings, but I think it's an opportunity for parents and teachers to voice their opinions, and I think they're going to do that tonight.
Concerns have been raised due to the close proximity of the planned facility to Hyannis West Elementary. Town manager Tom Lynch is taking the show on the road. The senior managers meeting has moved out of Town Hall and into Barnstable's villages.
Wednesday, we'll be on the road again with our senior managers meetings. We're going to Osterville, and we will be taking a tour of the completed East Bay boat ramp and going over to Joshua's Pond to see the work that has been completed there, as well as looking at the Osterville Bay School and the kind of suspended work on the playground that we're looking at there. And as you mentioned in today's newscast, they're beginning work on Bay Street that we had toured with Councilor Crocker in the early spring and committed to beginning some of the erosion work and putting in of riprap there. So we'll probably swing by and see how they're doing there, although they'll be in the middle of the construction. They might not want to.
That Bay Street work began this morning. It's expected to wrap up by July 31st. The ramp and parking lot will remain open with restrictions while work is taking place. Well, the now empty Marston's Mills East Elementary School might someday be a center for the arts. Town manager Tom Lynch tells us one proposal has been submitted.
That's been a surplus property that we've had for a while. Friday was the deadline for individuals to submit packages, bids. I understand that we have, again, just one bidder, but it's the Cotuit Center for the Arts, and we will be looking at their bid. And I think I'll do the same thing. I like to put together a review team so that mixture of citizens and folks that are in the art community and business people can look at it, determine along with town staff what are the areas that need to be addressed, and then I'd be able to look at that and decide to issue a lease or not for that particular
The Cape delegation is working with Cape Cod Community College following Governor Deval Patrick's line item veto of funds that would have been used to create a new airframe and power plant program. The college's communications director, Michael Gross, commented on this morning's Barnstable This Morning.
The governor had been, and I guess in many ways, philosophically remains very supportive of the program, but when it came time for about almost $2 million in funding to help us kickstart it, he line-itemed it out of the budget. And his veto message was that it didn't quite fit within the process of how he developed materials out of his budget. It's a little hard for us to grasp that. It literally came from Senator Terry Murray, the president of the Senate. We were very grateful. It was a piece of legislation offered by the legislature. Both houses approved it, but it wasn't developed within his own direct administration, not quite directly. And so, you always are trying to wonder exactly what happened, but okay, it happened. I think what is important here is that the local legislative delegation has become very energized, and we truly appreciate that. We have support growing now from our local chambers of commerce all the way up through Plymouth, and the goal is that this money could be returned if there is an override of the governor's veto. Dr. Cox has been very open about it. He feels very, very strongly that a program that would bring jobs that start at $45,000 through up and over $65,000 certainly would be a crucial shot in the arm to this region's economy, certainly to students who are here who would be interested in engineering aspects of this. The program trains individuals to inspect as well as repair the airframe of an airplane, and then a secondary part of it also trains individuals to work on, repair, monitor engines. And so you'll hear it called airframe and power plant, and in this case the power plant meaning the airplane's power plant, unlike Mass Maritime, which will train you to work massive industrial power plants. But the key to this is that it would be a destination program.
The Barnstable Senior Center receives a funding boost from a former member, according to Director of Senior Services, Madeline Noonan.
And we were very surprised recently when we were informed that one of our former clients, who for many years was very active at the Senior Center, her name was Virginia Gorse. She had actually moved away about 2 years ago because she had no relatives living here, and she had reached the point where she could no longer live independently. She moved to Illinois to be closer to a family member, and she passed away there in January at the age of 95 and a half years old. She had a remarkable life, and really in her estate planning left the bulk of her estate among 4 nonprofit organizations, including the Friends of the Barnstable Council on Aging. So we were notified that she left over $5,000 to the Friends to be used to benefit the Barnstable Senior Center. And when we were having discussions about the best use of the funds, we were aware here that Virginia had been a long-term client, not just of the Senior Center, but also of our Silver Express transportation program. So when she was no longer able to drive herself, to the Senior Center, but still wanted to remain active and, participate in all the activities that she took, she used our van to get her here for many years. So we felt that, in looking at our budget for the coming year and where we have a part-time van driver position that we created in 2010, and we have really sought out, grant funding to sustain that position, that this was a perfect use, of the funding, and really, I think, helped honor, her thoughtfulness and generosity to the Senior Center, and using it in a very thoughtful way that I think she would have, really approved of.
The gift of just over $5,000 will be used to fund a part-time van driver. A reminder to residents that the Ocean Street parking lot adjacent to Main Street Hyannis will become a pay-to-park lot on July 30th. Abutters do have the option to purchase a parking pass for the lot. Contact Regulatory Services for more details. Be sure to tune in to Barnstable This Morning, our weekly hour-long morning news program. Chief of Police Paul McDonald will join us tomorrow. We'll also have our weekly golf segment and continue our conversations with board, committee, and commission chairs. This week, we've got Conservation Commission Chair Dennis Houle. Tune in for the live broadcast at 7 a.m. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.